Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa.
May all beings be peaceful and happy, and may they forever maintain the causes of peace and happiness. May all beings be free from all sufferings and the causes of all sufferings. May all beings be happy and free from suffering, and may our own hearts be delighted about this. May all beings stay far away from greed and anger, and may they abide in equanimity.
Today we're going to examine a lesson from the Anthology of Discourses from the Pali Canon on Social and Communal Harmony. It's a book that every practitioner should have and study, because it teaches us how to establish an equitable community, how to get along with others, and it establishes the basis for our verbal conduct. So if we don't know what has been prescribed, elucidated, reasoned through, and given an opportunity to reflect, then we may be missing some of the tools that we can use to create the kind of community that has the power and the conscience to lift one another up and to hold one another, so that every person's heart dwells safely with you. So we have to consider, the Buddha asks us to consider the principles of speech, and we sort of know them, but I'd like to make sure that we can go a little deeper so that we can really understand the foundation for right speech. If I asked each one of you what right speech is, everybody would have something they could say about what they think right speech is. But he starts out this way with a very firm teaching. Shakyamuni said, monks possessing 9 factors. One that has not yet been approached is not worth approaching, or one that has been approached is not worth sitting with. What 9? Okay, so right away he's speaking from a certain strength or perspective. We think that Buddhist practice is all sweet and sugary and all, everybody talks so soft, it's so lovely, and then if you don't, then they think that somehow you've missed the mark. But he's not talking about nice speech. He's talking about well-spoken speech, speech that possesses certain qualities and cultivates and brings forth blamelessness and irreproachableness among the wise. And so he talked about how to hold discussions, for example. He said, in its relationship to talk, that a person may be understood is either fit to talk to or unfit to talk to, can be fit to talk or unfit to talk. If a person is asked a question that should be answered and he does not answer it categorically, if he's asked a question that should be answered after making a distinction and he answers it without making a distinction, if he's asked a question that should be answered with a counter question and he answers it without asking a counter question, if he asks a question that should be set aside and he does not set it aside, in such a case, this person is unfit to talk. Hard lesson today now. But how wonderful, he's got some pablum in there for those who need pablum. He's got some Gerbers for those who can eat mushed up food. He's got he's got a full meal for those who are ready to eat meat. So we shouldn't think that all Dharma should be just what is agreeable with us, with whatever mind state we have. That we and I find it pleasurable when I get my comeuppance. I find it pleasurable because it lets me know I'm ready for stronger meat. I'm ready. I'm ready to progress into a higher level of understanding, that I can receive this as a teaching, as an instruction that will make me better at what I do, that increases my understanding, increases my capacity to uplift or to turn upright what's upside down. And all of these are attributes and qualities that we have to possess. It's like we talk about babies raising babies, 13-year-olds. I have to say, in my mother's day, they got married at 13. 13, they were like fully functioning. By the time it got to my age group, 13, they couldn't function. Or maybe we had to be 18 or 20. Right now, we might have to be 35. It's just different, just different seasoning in the mix. So don't hold it strictly to age, because I don't mean it that way. I'm using that like for an example, and it means give the appropriate nourishment or nutriment, according to what one can tolerate and what one needs to continue to grow and to develop. So I remember one time I was talking about a training that we do in communal life, and that is like we hold things in common, and whoever needs it, regardless of whoever bought it, whoever needs it, it goes to them. And that's a training. It's a training in selflessness. But not everybody can do that. Not everybody is for undertaking that training. But they do want to not be selfish. And this is what it takes. This, if you really want to not be selfish, to undertake this training. Oh, no, that's too much for me. That's too much for me. And so that's okay. So everybody kind of selects what they can accommodate. But in time, when you master something, you get bored with that. You want to do better. You want to do more. You want to be more available. And you can do other, you can support in ways that become less and less, that you are less and less personally attached to things. And so you have less suffering because there's less things that you are attached to. I mean, like, you don't really mind if somebody wanted it and they just took it. It's not like, now that's on one hand, but you shouldn't take anything if you didn't buy it, and you just want it. You don't get to just take it, because everybody else is practicing not being attached to their stuff, so on both on you're training on two sides as and so sometimes you're on one side of the equation and sometimes you're on the other side. And that way you come to understand both sides. And there's a kind of equality that establishes itself that with the right understanding, the right attitude, you just know when it's allowable, okay for you to take something. Or if you take it, you don't take it all. Or, and this is something that gets walked out, bit by bit. This is how we learn. This is how we grow. We can't just read something in a book and we know how to apply that. We learn how to apply things by applying things and seeing what the result is. Sometimes the result's not so good. We know we need to change the way, or we didn't think about something a certain way, and now we will think about it. So this is a kind of all around where you have to be willing to be, the victim and the perpetrator, because that's all part of the training. You get a different understanding about right and wrong, and it no longer becomes something out there fixed that gets individually evaluated and interpreted, but everything has its own flavor, and it has its own taste, and it has its own scent, and you learn how strong or how mild to make your scent. You establish a footprint that you can tread softly and yet have a certain liberty and freedom to enjoy. This notion of this kind of sharing that we do. And so that falls squarely in the behavioral component. But speech gets a little bit more tricky. And so I thought today I'd talk a little bit about this. So he said it's in relationship to this that a person should be understood as either fit to talk or unfit to talk, fit to talk to or unfit to talk to. He said, monks, a talk is wrongly addressed when, having weighed one type of person against another, it is addressed to these 5 inappropriate types of persons. What 5? A talk on faith is wrongly addressed to one who is devoid of faith. A talk on virtuous behavior is wrongly addressed to an immoral person. A talk on learning is wrongly addressed to one of little learning. A talk on generosity is wrongly addressed to one who's a miser. A talk on wisdom is wrongly addressed to an unwise person. Faith, virtue, learning, wisdom, miserliness. And why is a talk on virtuous behavior wrongly addressed to an immoral person? When a talk on virtuous behavior is being given, an immoral person loses his temper and becomes irritated, hostile, and stubborn. He displays anger, hatred, and bitterness. For what reason? Because he does not perceive that virtuous behavior in himself. And he therefore does not rejoice in it. Therefore, talk on virtuous behavior is wrongly addressed to an immoral person. Why is a talk on learning wrongly addressed to a person of little learning? When a talk on learning is being given, a person of little learning loses his temper and becomes irritated, hostile, and stubborn. He displays anger, hatred, and bitterness. For what reason? Because he does not see that learning in himself and therefore cannot rejoice in it. Therefore, a talk on learning is wrongly addressed to a person of little learning. Why is a talk on generosity wrongly addressed to a miser? When a talk on generosity is being given, a miser loses his temper, becomes irritated, hostile, and stubborn. He displays anger, hatred, and bitterness. For what reason? Because he does not perceive that kind of generosity within himself and therefore cannot rejoice in it. Therefore, a talk on generosity is wrongly addressed to a miser. And why is a talk on wisdom wrongly addressed to an unwise person? When a talk on wisdom is being given, an unwise person loses his temper or becomes irritated, becomes hostile and stubborn. He displays anger, hatred, or bitterness. What is the reason? Because he does not perceive that wisdom in himself, and therefore he cannot rejoice in those words. Therefore, a talk on wisdom is wrongly addressed to an unwise person. A talk is wrongly addressed when having weighed one type of person against another. It is addressed to these 5 inappropriate types of persons. And then he goes into a teaching on the opposite, that a talk on faith is properly addressed to one endowed with faith. Why? Because they can see, perceive that faith in themselves and they rejoice in it. For one who has virtue, he can see that virtue within himself and so he rejoices in it. For one who has learning, because he delights in learning, he sees that quality in him and he rejoices in it. In wisdom, because he sees that wisdom budding in him and he delights in it and seeks more, he rejoices in wisdom. And for one who is not, knows that generosity in him and therefore he rejoices in it. Now, it seems like this goes against the grain, and in fact it does go against the grain, but this is where our wisdom begins to increase, because it would seem on the surface that one who has a little faith, you try to inspire him with faith, and one who has little learning, you try to share more with him. One who is miserly, you try to share the benefits of generosity. And that is true, but that's not true all the time. And that's why you have to, I was going to use the word discern, but I'm being checked on that word right now just because of what it means to people. And discernment kind of implies that we use our mind to sort out things. And what I'm speaking of is not a kind of mental discernment, but a kind of discernment that comes from one entering into a certain state where their clarity and the brightness of that state shines light on what a mind that's in front of them needs. And that you can't, that only comes from your own cultivation and your own development and your own surrender to the disciplines that you undertake because you really want to be able to be of a benefit to all beings. That whenever one comes into your presence, that you can have the right thing to say to them, and it's the right time to say it. You're the one to say it for the right reason. And that's a little more than just saying what can be said. A lot can be said, in a conversation, but what brings about the greatest benefit, both to the hearer and also to the one who is saying it. So a little bit more is required. And if we don't allow this kind of the opportunity for this kind of training, we will be immature and lacking in our capacity to help others. And we will also be immature and lacking in our capacity to help ourselves. We will suffer, and we will cause others to suffer. So I'm happy when I read something that catches me in my collar and says, "Pay attention." Oh, you should be able to do better than this. Have you forgotten the first precepts around this? And I'm reminded of them, and I rejoice. I rejoice because I've now found something that actually speaks to my heart's desire. Although I am inflamed by, caught up by, subject to these habitual tendencies and habitual ways of being and acting, and the defilements that have been obscured since beginningless time, I recognize that. So what is my way of escape? I only have one way of escape. And that is that I learned something or hear about something, endeavor to put it into practice if I'm caught in the suffering of something and I want to come out. The definition of crazy is to keep doing the same thing I'm doing, expecting a different result. So that means that I need to hear something differently. Now, that might not be what I find so delightful to hear. I like to think I'm a good person. I am. He says, "No, you're not. Look at this." And then I can look at it and say, "Dang. Pannavati, you got work to do." You don't have to flagellate, just need to look. And if we can take correction in this way, after all, if I don't get it at 75, when? Time is running out. And so I love it when the Dharma treats me like an adult. When it can just point me to something, like, "Oh, but don't tell Santi. Just tell me. Just point out my shortcoming to me. Don't tell Santi about it, though." But the thing is, when people are moving and striving in this way, and each of us being a light or a light bulb, you come in our room, the room's lit up. You can't come with certain things, because we can see it, because the light is on, And so I feel bad because sometimes I think people can go somewhere to a Dharma center or whatever, and they think that everybody is blind, everybody's hidden, because they haven't encountered, a community who is striving in this way, so that there's a certain brightness that's apparent. This whole it ain't when you know the principles. How many of when something is not ascribing to the principle, when it's out of harmony, and when it's the opposite of what is virtuous. You can just see it. And it's not any supernatural power or supernormal power. It's just like having the light on in a dark room. We should have it. But if we haven't heard it, we don't know that we should have it. If we've heard only don't don't talk about other people. Don't repeat something that you've heard in confidence. That is absolutely true, except when you do need to talk about it, even if it was said in confidence. When it's something that destroys the harmony and goes counter to the Dharma, it should be talked about. You see? But if you haven't learned that part, you only hear, don't talk about others. And therefore, the community collapses because the wisdom and the maturity is not there to hold it together. So that's the hard job that parents have in raising their children. And I know in my generation, at least, you know, people started having children earlier and earlier, you know, without being in a stable community. And so it was children raising children. And a lot got turned around in the stability of the family because they would raise children. They were children themselves. They had child mentality. And you could see as each generation came, you could see the vectoring off of certain qualities not being able to come forward. And I know if we did something wrong in school, before we got home, 5 parents knew about it. You know, they catch us coming home. And I mean, some of them even whooped us before we got home. You know, I don't need a whooping because Miss Jones gave me one. You know, I mean, everybody would hear about it. Everybody was correcting you along the way. We didn't like it then. You know, now, you know, you see some kids in school. I had a friend of mine, she was a teacher. You know, kid threw her down the steps at school. And she quit teaching. She said, I can't function like this. She used to love teaching. But the kids have gotten so unruly and so rowdy, and their parents became school worse than them. You know. And so he speaks in here when he gets to the end of what causes a society to crumble. And he starts with the devolving of the virtue and the teaching of wisdom in the family. He takes it from that bottom and takes it on out to society. Then he says that's not the only thing. He starts at the top. When the king is bad, everybody's going to go bad. When the king is bad, he influences his cabinet and they go bad. And when they go bad, they influence the secretaries of state. And when they go bad, they influence the local leaders. When they go bad, they influence, you know, the families, the parents. And when they go bad, they influence the children. So he talks about the destruction from both ends. He says, so, and then we come together around a way of life, but we come also, some with a little teaching, some with a lot of teaching, some with discipline, some without discipline, have the same goal, have our eye on the same prize, but don't have the cultivation and the development to bring it to fruition because we've come up in different circumstances, different environments, not learned certain principles of the very thing that we say we're all about. And so we don't reach our goal. So we should be looking for just that one little teaspoon of something that corrects, you know. If I haven't heard something in a Dharma talk that corrects me, then I don't think that's a very good teacher. You know. Now I don't mean flagellate because I'm not down for that. But I mean just to hear something that gives me pause, that made it worth my while to sit and to listen to it. You know. He said a Dharma teacher talks Dharma. And so if I go and there's no talking of Dharma, and in this sense, you could say that Dharma means how to walk in the Buddhic mind, to have the Buddhic mentality, then it's not, I don't have a takeaway. I just have some blah blah. But I come for a takeaway. And I'm happy when I have one that I have to sit and reflect. That's why I said when you're with a teacher who points out your faults, stay with that teacher. Because that's what's going to help us to come out of our faults. Now you got to be built up to be able to do that, though. You know? So one who's weak, so that's why he gave this particular talk, so that you would know that's generally true, but it's not always true. So if one doesn't have faith, it becomes a challenge to try to bolster his faith. First, you can try faith, but if you see that's not getting the desired result, abandon it. Don't try even to build them more in faith, because it just makes them more resistant. You know, we have to find a workaround. It doesn't mean that we necessarily are like just crumbling and giving up or giving in, but recognizing their inability to use that in a constructive way. So there was a time I gave a teaching on another practice is not saying, we practiced not saying thank you, and we practiced not needing to be thanked. And it was a training. I mean, actually, if you undertake it, you will see, your mind will talk to you. Like about whether somebody appreciates you or not. Even you might even love doing it, you know? But then there's a little thing, and they ain't even say thank you. You know, you loved, you know, I mean, it's true. And then you see, oh, there's a seed in there that can be watered, and it's going to be ugly if it sprouts. I didn't even know it was there, you know? But when that little nagging voice, now I asked for this, that was the least they could have done, you know, because I do this for them. It's designed to kill off absolutely those kinds of thoughts. And so these practices may seem hard, or like I don't think it takes all of that, you know, but like I'm a hard cookie. So I know it takes a lot for me. You know, you have to know yourself. So he says, so if one is not faithful, don't talk to them. Don't try to arouse their faith. I guess you could try in the beginning, but if you see that's not working, then, you know, then you have to abandon that. Even though it may be your heart's desire, you know, to arouse them. He's saying that they can't tolerate strong meat. Give them pablum. You know. And then he talks about the one who is unvirtuous. Don't talk about wrongdoing, because it's like heaping coals of fire on their head. You know. Well, it doesn't necessarily mean that. You know, stone. And if it's one who is miserly, don't talk to them about generosity, because they can't even hear you. But if you treat them kindly and in a certain way, they will come to see generosity in action, and they will know what that is. And they will see it as something that is delightful. Maybe not in the beginning. Maybe they see it as something to be used. Something, to get over on somebody. Oh, she'll give it to me. When I had the kids, they would, they knew they could get anything from me, And sometimes they stole things from me. I let them know that I know they stole it. I said, but here's the deal. You don't have to steal it from me. I give it to you. And I gave it to them. And there was only one child out of 85 that lived with us for those years, all those years, till he graduated from high school and got training and moved on. Only one child stole something of substance from me. And his conscience got to him so bad that he came and confessed. And I just said, okay, so go home and we'll talk about it at home, because we had the big center in town, and I didn't want him to be around the other kids. And with this issue going on, we had given we had a little non-alcoholic nightclub and all of that, which the police hated because we had a Bob Marley poster, and they thought he was a criminal, and they didn't like me having posters up and things like that, so they were hostile whenever they came in on their rounds, just passing through. And so this was a safe place for them. Like, this is not a public space, and I wouldn't let the police come in. If you get called, come in, but otherwise, this is not no place you roam around checking people out, and because it was their space. And so I didn't want him there. I sent him home. But when I got home and planned to deal with him, because he had already, he stole some things and he pawned it, and the pawn shop let me know. And, and so he wasn't from here, so he didn't know how close this, this community is. But when I got home, he left a note that he couldn't face me. He had packed his bags, and he left town. He didn't have to leave town. I would have had to deal with it, but he didn't have to leave, because I understood his background, and he deserved more of a chance. And I tried to find him, but I couldn't find him. But I'm saying this to say that we learn the true nature of things other than the way our reasoning goes, by trying to incorporate and trying to be with the principles that seem out of kilter for us. I know that I'm nowhere, I do not have the stature of a holy being, that I do not have the stature of a bodhisattva. I want it, but I don't have it yet. I have not attained to it. So that means there's things in me that at this level, I'll never have that state of mind. So I have to uproot, I have to see through the fallacy of something, some way that I'm seeing to improve. It's like everybody loves and respects a martyr, but nobody wants to be one. And so I wanted to say to you today, because my talk is short, because I wanted to keep it pointed and focused, on this, that how we can count it all joy when we hear teachings that challenge us, that hit our soft spot, hit our heart, our push our buttons, you know, when our yeah but immediately arises. And it will also help us when people act unseemly around us, if we can recognize that that's not always the time for a lesson. You know? And between these two like polar opposites, we come to a middle way that supersedes the value of either one of those. This is the tricky part. This is the work part of our practice. You know, it's like bringing together the conflicting notions of things till we can balance everything on the head of a pin. And it's subtle. It's so subtle. And you might even think you got it. Oh, got it now. I got it. Like I'm having this aha moment, this great insight, you know. But that insight is for when? That moment. Right. That's not the insight. That is an insight. And if you hold an insight that way, tuck it away. Don't lose it. Don't forget it. There will come the time that it's appropriate to use that insight. But another time it's appropriate to use another insight. So now you got to figure out which insight is the right insight for this moment. It also comes gradually as you step out and do the best you can, and you see the results of your work. Like, oh, no, that don't work. I know not to do that in this particular situation with this kind of mind. And now that becomes just, that becomes your wisdom, your learning, your knowing. You know, not just Paul parroting what the book said, but it becomes your own wisdom. And this is a wisdom path. It's a lights fully turned on kind of path. And it, I only love it because it seems to go further, goes deeper, more discriminating, so discriminating until it gets beyond discrimination. So you can see the universality of things, and yet you can see the immediate, you know, usage of something. And so we have methods by which we train ourselves to get this type of wisdom. But when we get it, we know it. Because it becomes part of what we are, not who we are. It becomes part of what we are. And that personality thing, that personality illusion that's formed, you know, of the 5 aggregates begins to gradually dissolve. Now we can really begin to see the illusory nature of that one that I call with a name and form. That one that I call Pannavati. Start to see how that is not the real thing, you know. But there's just an amalgamation of energetic quality, you know, and that becomes more who I am than this constructed personality around my defilements. Now, when I say around my defilements, doesn't mean I don't also see my goodness too, you know. You can see your goodness. But it's like not needing that. You know what's there. It's like catch and release, you know. Something comes in this hand, you take it and you give it over there without even thinking about it, you know. I still sometimes think about it. I know I need to keep working at that. Sometimes I don't think about it, but sometimes I do. And I get without it, and I'm free. But when I think about it, I suffer if they didn't give the right response, if they didn't respect me in the right way, if they didn't, you know. And that's where our suffering comes from. So it's a gift to us to be nurtured and developed and raised in this way, that there's nothing worth clinging to in this world. So I'm not trying to be a better human being, because I see a limitation for the human capacity. I'm trying to change lineages. A Buddha's not a human being. He might take up a Nirmanakaya, a body that's no more than like putting on a robe for a period of time. And they even say, like, when we put it on, we're subject to the beingness that we take up for expressing. I'd always said that I had all I wanted of this world, or this kind of world. I do not want to come back, you know, here. And I've had enough of being a human being. But lately I've been thinking about that, because I'm still so close to it, that maybe if I elevated, this would be the best place, because I can understand the suffering that's here. Now that's what I've been totally against, coming back to this world. I've been like, that's a no. You know, if there's any way, I'm trying to claw my way, you know, because I want to, in whatever mind stream's left, I want to be in a different place than this, you know. But sometimes I think now about, but I can identify, you know, so I have a capacity to be more compassionate, because I can identify, because I'm like that. The good I would do, I don't always do. And what I don't want to do, sometimes I do. So I could maybe arouse a little bit more patience, you know, a little bit more understanding. If I really overcome it, then I'm not going to be so upset when somebody does a disrespectful thing or acts in a way, you know, that is harmful. I can understand why they act that way. I used to take foster kids, and it was difficult because I raised my children a certain way. You bet, I did. You know, because I didn't want them to go out in the street with that sassy attitude and that smart mouth, and I didn't want the world to have to teach them a lesson. I taught it at home so that the one who doesn't love them out there wouldn't have to do it, you know. But when I had the foster kids come in, they didn't have anyone to nurture them that way. So they'd be a little sassy, you know. And my kids would get upset in the beginning, and I would explain to them. You know, say, you let her get away with such and such. You let him do that. So I said, because he didn't have any home training. He didn't have anybody to show him that that's not the way to be. But you did. And over time, they came to understand. It, not in the beginning, because they thought I was treating them differently. And made it worse, they have to go to school. Then and when they're in school, the foster child might be saying, yeah, she'll give me anything I want, you know, and they got to hear that, right? Um, and But later, they became just like me. I mean, they understood, and it didn't bother them. So they were free from a certain kind of suffering. I mean, they really overcame it because they began to see the hardship that came into the lives of the kids who wanted to operate to the contrary. They saw the suffering. So a person can't see until they can see. And up until that time, he says, we should be patient with him. There's another time the ones say that door ain't no lock on it. But you just have to know what time it is. So if anybody wants to, I hope this has been a useful instruction. It says that his disciples were perplexed when he taught this, because now they were confused. They want, give me a rule, okay? And they got a rule. And they could, she broke the rule. She broke the rule. You know, so they lived by the rule, but it wasn't a rule. It was a training guideline, so that you can establish. Sometimes offense, you know, it keeps you safe, keeps you within, keeps you contained. Sometimes it provides a boundary. Sometimes, you know, so you have to know when something is constraining you, keeping you from going, you know, like hog wild, or when something is keeping you safe, corralled within a sanctuary. And in the beginning, we don't always know. No. So he tells us to ponder in this kind of way from both sides. It allows, on one hand, he said, it preserves the communal harmony. And it gives us a chance to practice when that harmony is disturbed. We know that it's work we have to do on ourselves. And how, like, not a righteousness, but how one can know that the Dharma is working in your life when you can apply the right measure, you know. It's not to say, I got it right, I can do it. It's not like that, but it's to just recognize, because that's where our confidence in the Dharma comes from. Our confidence in the Dharma, he said, dwell, you are the light itself. Rely on that light. Do not rely on anything other than that light. And then he said, the Dharma is that light. Rely on the Dharma. Do not rely on anything other than the Dharma. So that just speaks of the Dharma in me. It lets me know how much I have in me. He said, don't even worry about who in this particular conversation about who your teacher is. It said, ascertain how much Dharma is in you. So, if anybody wants to say anything, please feel free.
I do.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm fit to speak, but. So this is very, very helpful for me because this has been bubbling up. And recently it's been bubbling up, and then you're talking about it today was really very helpful. And so the fit to talk to one, or unfit to talk to, and unfit to talk. I have this tendency, and it's a big mistake, I realize it's a big mistake, this tendency when somebody is like very, very upset about a particular, stop it. Very upset about a particular thing. You know, like a certain viewpoint. And then I have the tendency to offer a different viewpoint. And what I know, I shouldn't say the words, I know it just pisses them off. And it's really about feeling like I have to give this other viewpoint here. Like, so, like widen it up, open it up, you know, like just don't think about it that way. And it's so, you know, nobody's interested in hearing a different viewpoint. You know?
I do know.
Thank
But
you.
isn't it wonderful?
Yeah.
It's wonderful when you can see that.
Like,
That's
wait a
what I'm
minute.
saying.
Yeah, like wait a minute. What about this? That person is not interested in hearing that.
And it may not
nor is
change
I
right
to.
away, you know.
Right.
And so that's right. The other person just realized she got to say that.
Yeah.
And
Right,
they
right,
don't
right.
pay any attention to you
Exactly.
either.
They
You know.
just- you just make them angry at you.
They say, oh, well, that's just being else.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That was very, very, it's just habitual.
Yeah, but you know, I remember you made that observation a little while back, you know, and I was like really rejoicing in it. That's not something that I can say to you.
Right.
That's something that you have to realize
Yeah.
on your own. But when
Yes.
you do realize, matter of
Yes.
fact, to say it is
Yes.
is
Yes.
to be contrary, you know.
Yes.
But when you realize something
Yes.
for
Yeah.
yourself,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so wonderful because one then knows I am making progress
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
path. And I can look at these little things, the things that trouble me. If I looked at them and I saw them as progress instead of what's wrong with me, you know,
Yeah.
then we'd receive it in a different way.
Yeah.
And we can
Yeah.
rejoice in our
Yeah. And then the other one, which
in
is
our
different.
insights.
Different than this one, the other one was about control and safety,
Mm.
you know. It's the control, it's, what is it, the wolf in sheep's clothing? It's the wolf it's like trying to keep myself and others safe. And it's in that realm. And in that realm, it's that you can't have freedom and control because they're mutually exclusive.
Mhm. And that's a good point to make, you know, like what we think about others, like control, as you're speaking of, and part of that being wanting to keep others safe,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah,
But if I thought about you, she's just trying to be in charge, or she just,
Yeah.
you know, then that's one way of thinking. But if I
Yeah.
thought she just wants to keep people safe,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
then that changes
both,
my
yeah.
Exactly.
exactly.
Receptivity towards what you say, because I'm putting a judgment on everything you're saying. I'm Pannavati is putting her judgment on that, you know.
Yeah.
But if I have a principle that I can follow that says says Pannavati, that's your perception. You know, before you jump out the gate, but how you think she meant it, or what you know, you think she's trying to do, suppose you just thought of the best, or suppose you just didn't pay it any mind,
Yeah,
you didn't
yeah,
give it
yeah.
any credence.
Yeah, yeah.
That would be better than trying to think you know
Yeah.
what it is, you know. So
Yeah.
that gives me somewhere to go, something to sink my teeth into, something to try in the moment, to remain neutral and impartial, to remain grateful, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
And then the disrespect too, if it's not thought through, the disrespect that they didn't have the wherewithal
mhm.
to realize that.
It helps you
Number
not
one.
helps you not take that disrespect personal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, and then that also makes, you know, and sometimes somebody can choose to do something that I see that might be harmful. And there's also the control aspect of that doesn't give you the freedom to do the thing that I thought you shouldn't do, that you need to do.
Right.
Because it's your karma.
Yeah.
It's tricky.
It is.
It's very tricky.
It is.
Yeah.
We're all busybodies. I remember when I was a Baptist preacher, and I'm preaching on this woman, cause you know, that's why I understand when they used to give sermons on me, and was on being busybody, and she came up after the service. She said, Pastor, she said, I so enjoyed your talk today. She said, I'm glad I'm not like that. And I said, me too. I just said, me too, sister.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's good.
That's all I could do with that. Me too, sister.
Thank you.
Thank you. Somebody want to close for me today?
Oops, sorry. Hi.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi. Elsie, I want to thank you because you and Pannavati, I want to thank you because this is a very humbling, important lesson for me. And I'm happy to put this out there, is that there are times that I think there are things that I'm not necessarily ready to hear, not because I'm not ready, because I don't want to be ready and I don't want to hear them. And there's been too much hubris and pride to accept them. And what you're talking about here about don't give somebody a talk on wise speech or faith if they're not ready is very counterintuitive. And I had to sit, like, I appreciate you saying that. And then I realized it's true, because you're just speaking to the wall. And that's not a benefit. But for the times that you have definitely let me know in your own special way, something I needed to know and wasn't ready to know, I want to let you know that I appreciate that. No, you can laugh, and that's okay, because it's honest.
I'm laughing at myself.
Pardon me, Elsie?
I'm laughing at myself.
Oh, no, it is
I'm
very,
laughing at myself my special way.
very true. And I appreciate that, because there are times I don't want to hear it, and there's times that I don't hear it, and there's times you don't say it. But what I have recognized for myself is the only thing you were trying to teach me is that I shouldn't take that or not take that from you. I had to have that faith and recognition and view and understanding of myself. And until I could get to that point, there was no reason to give any of the other talks, because it was not going to fall on a readiness level and have the penetration. And I just want to let you know that this was very important. And, you know, thank you. Thank you for those times. I didn't like them, and I probably won't like them in the future, but I know what you were trying to do. And I understand that now. So thank you.
Yeah. And I love you very much.
You should have retired 10 years ago, girl, because you're making progress in leaps and bounds now. You just needed some time for yourself.
Well, I'm just going to go
wonderful.
straight out, man. I picked a damn ass right here to walk away from that special edge. Oh, yeah, no, it's true. And I'm so grateful for my Sangha and my friends and for Dave and for community, because I didn't cling to that identity or role at all. When, you know, I really was able to just let it go like a robe and move forward and feel complete non-attachment nor enthusiasm or anything, just kind of an equanimity and a steadiness that I can't even explain. And I don't need to, which is great. So thank you. That all the 8 years have definitely prepared me for this moment. And now I'm grateful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Someone want to offer merit?
May the merit from our time together benefit all beings equally. May they be free from every state of samsara, all the harm, all the doubt. And may they come to know the truth within themselves and set themselves